I found out a few years ago that the real reason my parents stopped playing Pictionary wasn't that they didn't like it. It's that it caused multiple arguments where my parents ended up not speaking to each other for weeks at a time. The first argument that was a big thing was that my mom did not know that Zimbabwe was a country. The second was about whether goose pimples and goosebumps were the same thing. And the third one was about whether a pig's tail curls clockwise or counterclockwise. Apparently, that argument led to my parents only saying clockwise or counterclockwise to each other for about 2 weeks. My siblings and I all found out about this about 10 years ago when my uncle came for a visit and reminded my parents of some of their legendary arguments, including the goosebumps, shark goose pimples one. Apparently, my mom and dad used to play my aunt and uncle in different games a lot, and my parents had to stop playing Pictionary and a couple of other games because they got too heated. Story 21. There was a dictator in power for 30 years in my country of origin. Both my great-grandfather and grandfather did horrible things to innocent people and carried out mass killings. I wanted to write my grandfather's memoir, but he refused, saying, "The survivors might come for our family if the truth of his crimes ever came to light." He never had remorse for his actions and was even buried in his uniform. Story 22. Growing up, I was always told my granddad died of heart failure at 40 when my dad was 4, leaving behind 5 kids. I was never given any other details, and my dad never wanted to talk about it, as it must be the most traumatic thing in his life. Flash forward to when my wife and I get married and she tells me, "Wow, that thing that happened with your dad's dad sounds crazy." Shortly after meeting my grandmother, obviously, I'm totally confused as to what she means. Turns out she'd had a conversation with my grandmother who explained to her that my granddad was the local milkman and basically went around town shagging every woman in town on his route while working. Also turns out he was also a petty thief known to the police and had a bad rep with them. Supposedly, he was caught sleeping with a local police officer's wife on his milk route and was found face down in a puddle in a clearing, well out of the way a couple days later, with his heart stopped. The rumored actual cause of death was that he was beaten to death by the police, who made it look accidental. Obviously, I asked if this was true, and my parents, my grandmother, family all confirmed it and just said they told the kids our age the simple heart failure explanation because we'd never be able to understand when we asked where Granddad was. Crazy how much makes sense in hindsight, as my dad had zero tolerance, respect for thievery, stealing, and infidelity when I was growing up.